Hey everyone, I hope you're having a great day. So I have a really interesting video for any Spider-Man fan like myself because I have been reading this Marvel Cinematic Universe book. This is an official MCU book and it's pretty sweet. I mean, just look at that. That's one of the covers. The other one literally is at the corner right here with the nano gauntlet. And I'm not going to bore you by like reading the book to you, but this book has a lot of inside knowledge and behind the scenes looks about the creative process of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And there is a really interesting section of the book that details when they decided to bring Spider-Man in the MCU. And they actually talk about the first meeting that took place between Amy Pascal, who produced pretty much all the Spider-Man movies, and Kevin Feige, who's the president of Marvel Studios. They literally detail the meeting that they had to discuss the future of Spider-Man. So Amy Pascal literally thought that the meeting was going to be about The Amazing Spider-Man 3, and she wanted Kevin Feige to be a little bit more creatively involved in that movie. Like, she wanted him to help her out, like make The Amazing Spider-Man 3 better, because obviously The Amazing Spider-Man 2 didn't have, the most amazing reception. And funny enough, Kevin Feige actually did provide some notes for The Amazing Spider-Man 2. And he mentions this. He mentions that he actually did kind of help with The Amazing Spider-Man 2, and that didn't pan out so well. So what would be the difference in the next one? They clearly didn't listen to his notes. And prior to the interview, Kevin Feige already had a game plan about what he thought Spider-Man would look like in the future if they were to somehow cross over Spider-Man into the MCU. And Kevin and his team knew that if they were going to bring Spider-Man back and implement him in the MCU, they would need him to be a much younger version, and they would want him to be in high school. So essentially, Kevin Feige went into the interview to pitch his idea of having to reboot Spider-Man again. And Amy Pascal did not like this. She was kind of insulted and taken aback by the idea that he was telling her, if you want us to do Spider-Man right, you're going to have to scrap what you have going on, because it's not the best. And initially, she resented the idea. She was mad about it. And it says here that she threw a sandwich at him. Like, she threw him out of his office. So it's interesting to see, like, okay, she was really upset at the idea of getting rid of Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man, because as controversial as like the opinion of the Amazing Spider-Man movies are, like, some people love them, some people think they're garbage. You can't say that they didn't have really good aspects about them, and we see that the best parts of it, Andrew Garfield himself, he's a really good Spider-Man. So I can see why she was upset that this really good Spider-Man was kind of just the idea of him being tossed aside. She didn't like that. But they also knew that what they were doing with the Amazing Spider-Man movies wasn't anything unique, and it wasn't special. And in fact, she mentions that they may have been trying too hard to be different when they had no business doing that, and they weren't necessarily being original or providing anything new to the table. So the idea of putting Spider-Man back in high school and keeping him there for a while and having him go through the troubles that go along with that aspect of the pitch really intrigued her. And Kevin Feige tells her, the only way I know how to do anything is to just do it entirely. So why don't you let us do it? Don't think of it as two studios, and don't think of it as giving another studio back the rights. No change of hands of rights, no change of hands of money, just engage us to produce it. Just pretend it's like DC with Christopher Nolan. I'm not saying we're Nolan, but I am saying there is a production company that is doing this pretty well. Just engage the services of that production company to make the movie. And that is where she was taken aback. Like, she could not believe someone was telling her to give up what you've been working towards and all the plans that you have. And obviously, after thinking about it for a while, she says, the idea of putting him against a world where everybody has everything and he had nothing has a whole new way of telling his story. I thought, God damn, that guy's smart, referring to Kevin Feige. That's pretty funny. Like, that guy is a genius. Even Amy Pascal was like, oh my God, like, this is brilliant, putting him in here. If we can make this work, this could be so fresh and new, and people would love seeing Spider-Man interact with these other superheroes. She then goes on to say, Sony needs Spider-Man to be vital, and Spider-Man needed Marvel. We could fan our own egos as long as we wanted, but the truth is, every decision that you make in life is either about your ego or your ambition. And you better make sure your ambition wins. And this is a really good lesson, and I'm so glad that they were able to put their ego aside and not just like try to push out bad Spider-Man movies just because they can say they made it. I think we're all glad that Sony was smart enough to give Marvel creative control of Spider-Man. And so after the decision was made to bring Peter in Captain America Civil War as his introduction into the MCU, Kevin Feige walks into one of the concept artists' rooms. And he tells one of the artists that we need to do some designs for Peter. And the artist is confused because he's looking at the movie going, well, we don't have a Peter in the script. Are you talking about Peter Quill? And Kevin's like, no, Parker. And that's such a freaking badass moment. Like, imagine being that artist, being told, like, being one of the first persons to know that Peter Parker is coming to the MCU. That's a really cool moment. This meeting was like the duel of the fates. It was like everything was hinging on how this meeting played out. If Amy Pascal just shoved him out and didn't call him again, we would have gotten no MCU Spider-Man, no Tom Holland, no Spider-Man in Civil War or in any of the Avengers movies, and no Spider-Man No Way Home. I mean, just think about that. We probably would have gotten a bunch of like subpar Spider-Man movies with the Amazing Spider-Man, a bunch of convoluted plot lines, and we would have gotten a Black Cat movie and a weird Sinister Six movie and a Silver Sable movie. All those crazy projects that they had in mind, they would have done, and they would have been okay, I guess. It would have been like the level of like Morbius hype. People would just be like, okay, that's coming out too, I guess. But Sony was obviously able to put their ego aside, work with Marvel, bring Spider-Man in the MCU, cast Tom Holland, who's a really good Spider-Man. And yeah, I thought this was just a really interesting inside look. Thank you, Fire Tiger, for subscribing. Really interesting inside look into like the creative side of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and like just the little meetings that go on behind the scenes that you don't really know how they play out. The fact that it was just over like a cup of coffee between two studio heads, that's kind of crazy how that is what decided what happens with Spider-Man. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm working on a bunch of what ifs and videos like that, so don't worry, that content is still coming. And don't forget to comment your thoughts on this video. I'm really curious to see what you guys think about this little meeting. And yeah, see you guys.